they're dealing with the fallout
Yeah.
of Mount Doom. All right, welcome to the podcast. Of course, I am joined by the effervescent, incredible, amazing producer, screenwriter, and staff member at WeFixYourScript.com, Kristy Lee Luce here. Thanks for being on the show.
Oh, always happy to be here.
I'm excited I nailed the intro.
You did.
You guys have no idea how many times you have to re-edit and cut that. So we are going to double up on
Yeah.
episode 7 and 8. We did that last episode. I actually thought it worked really well because they bookended each other. And I think, you know what, let's do it on this one too, because I just think it makes sense. These two bookended each other as well. So
Yep.
I'm not going to give you log lines on this because we are covering 2 episodes.
That's fine.
But I thought seven was pretty great because they're dealing with the fallout of Mount Doom.
Right.
Give me your
and
thoughts.
we shift back to other things too. So
Yeah. So give me your thoughts on 7. What were you feeling?
I think 7 is kind of like the brewing to the end, basically, right? So
Right.
now we're kind of like simmering on a lot of stuff that we've seen up until this point. And obviously we go back to the Harfoots and kind of work out and kind of get dove back into that storyline, which they weren't in episode 6, basically.
Right. Yeah. So we bounce back to them.
And obviously we bounce back to the dwarves and a big chunk of stuff going on with them as well. So I felt like this was kind of, let's go back, let's revisit these storylines, let's kind of simmer the pot until we get to episode 8, which is obviously the finale. So
yeah.
I thought it worked. I thought 7 was fine.
Yeah, the A plot kind of hit that big climax at the end of 6 there. And so the A plot is rather cataclysmic at this point.
Right.
What I thought was cool with 7 is that up until that point, we are having this kind of like, oh, yeah, Middle Earth is kind of great. You know, it's not too bad. We've got some orcs here and there, and they're digging around doing craziness. Compared to the films, because I didn't read the books, sorry. But compared to the films, we already kind of came into this. The orcs are in Mordor, they're slaughtering, Sauron is coming, right? Yeah. So we know things are going to happen. We weren't having that. We were kind of having, hey, everything is at peace. And now we see the literal fallout of everything that happened. And I thought that was cool.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, even revisiting the idea that the elves' time is short, right?
Yeah.
And so they're kind of on this short timeline, which is why it's so significant and important that Elrond is, trying to get them Mithril or whatever. I can never pronounce it right. Yeah, Mithril. God, I can never pronounce it right.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It's one of those words.
It's not a real thing. I mean, I tried finding it on the periodic table. It doesn't exist. So.
I mean, I'm a big fantasy person and I can usually get around fantasy words, but this word, I don't know why.
You can find mithril on the periodic table right next to unobtainium.
Yes.
And adamantium. They're all right there.
It's all just,
it's all intermingled right there on the periodic table.
No, yeah, but for sure, like 7 is yeah, you're right. So now we're kind of just starting to see these elements of, there is like I said, to me, it was like a storm of ruin. So now we're starting to see that the evil elements are prevalent or probably going to be prevalent in the world. And now these cultures and these societies and these groups of people are having to kind of come to terms with it and face to face with that.
Which is visually reflected in the episode itself, with literally the ash coming out and the red atmosphere of the explosion from the mountain. So you're getting that visual representation of, hey, this is hell on Earth now, hell on Middle Earth.
Yeah.
And I thought that was great. But also what I really love with shows is foreshadowing. And so we had a nice subtle element of foreshadowing. If we go all the way back a few episodes to where the queen was talking with her crazy dad, and he says, darkness awaits you in Middle Earth, right? And we're thinking he means, evil, right? Well, it
Yep.
turns it's a literal darkness because she
Yeah.
goes blind, you
She
know?
goes blind. She can't see
Yeah.
anymore.
I
Her
thought
life, her life is darkness now.
yeah, I thought that was great. Really great foreshadowing. I really did appreciate that. Of course, the subplot with Durin and Elrond is great. I mean, those two characters really bring out the best in each other, and it
Mhm.
is this kind of bromance going on, which
It
is so
is.
sweet, you
It's
know?
so sweet. Yeah. I think if I can say one thing I think that the show just nailed perfectly, I think it's the dwarven culture.
Oh yeah.
It's fantastic. It's perfect. It
You've
really
ne-
is a great depiction.
I've never seen dwarven culture really explored to this extent. I'm thinking back to like the the very first like Dungeons and Dragons movie that came out,
Oh yeah.
which was wild, and they had a dwarf in it, and it was just wasn't
Yeah.
anything, you know. And so to see this where they're really diving in, they're singing to the stones, and everything
Yeah.
means something,
Mhm.
or even when Durin is at one point playing with the elves about how sacred a table is, and it
Right.
turns out it's just regular stone, but
It's
you
just
know it's
yeah.
just seeing that play out is fantastic.
Oh, for sure.
um so we get to episode 7.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, episode 8. Let me
Oh,
correct
okay.
myself. So we get to the finale. We're past all the cataclysmic events. People are recovered from that. We're getting into the promise of the premise now, which is rings of power,
Sure. Right.
right? All
Yep.
right.
Here we go with the rings. Here they come.
This is where Jeffrey is humbled. Because this entire series, we've accused everyone of being Sauron.
Mhm.
But, and I'm going on record, you were first to be suspicious of Halbrand.
Oh
That
yeah.
you were first to be suspicious of Halbrand. You picked up on it right away. I started to pick up on it when he looked over at the forge in Numenor. Aren't you excited in remembering these names? He looked
Yeah.
over at the forge in Numenor, and we went, "Oh, that's there's a little something going on right there."
No, I
There's a
mean, talk
little,
about foreshadowing, right?
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So we start going, "Oh, okay, it might be a
Yeah.
thing."
Yeah.
Um,
It's just this interesting. So spoilers, obviously, clearly they've revealed that Halbrand
mhm,
is Sauron, but it's just this interesting. It's an interesting arc choice that I think that the writing team took and the showrunners took because, um, again, that's not in the lore that Sauron is involved in the development
right,
and forging of the rings.
right.
So for them to kind of take this interesting twist where it was like, what if he's the one that pushed them to do it?
I love it.
Um, but it kind of also maybe answers the question of the fact that like there's always been this thing about how come Sauron got so powerful? How come he was
Right.
able to do what he was able to do?
Yeah.
And this kind of lends to that, well, because his hand was involved in it in the first place. You
Right.
know, the thing about that he was able to control or use the power of the One Ring just because he was part of making him, right?
Right. And I feel Celebrimbor is bored. I mean, really, he's bored. He has nothing to do. He's got that powerful hammer that he's known
Yeah.
for, but that's it. This guy wants to be busy. He just needs a little tip, a little promise, a little push
Yeah.
in the right way, and Sauron is happy to do it. So
He's
so
happy to do it.
you know what I mean?
It just makes me laugh because I know that there's a huge chunk of this fandom that's really upset because Celebrimbor was like one of the most intelligent minds on the
Yeah.
planet. So
But that doesn't mean
how come they decided that like Sauron was going to be smarter than him, right? And be like, well, you could just do these with these alloys and then it would, and he's like, oh, I guess I could. Like, I know a lot of people are mad about that, but I can understand in the writer's room why they wanted to maybe explore like, let's give reason and context behind some of
yeah.
that. So I don't know.
Uh,
It's interesting.
the way I looked at it is Celebrimbor is intelligent. He's a master at his craft, but he looks at it from one direction.
Yeah, that's
And
kind of
and that's
right.
how I see all of the races. Like dwarves have one perspective, elves have a
Mhm.
very particular perspective. Humans have another perspective. One of humans'
Right.
perspectives is thinking outside of the box. And so that's what the Sauron character or Halbrand brings to the table is provides a new perspective, which is enlightening. So I understand fandom is fandom, and they get mad, and
Yeah,
people find a reason. But it made sense to me watching it, the motivation of the character, right?
for sure. Exactly. Yeah. Character
Yeah.
motivation for
Now,
sure.
as a writing convenience, yeah, sure. But why wouldn't you want to bring Sauron into the table? He's in the show. So
Yeah. And again, you're trying to, you're writing a major show that's like a huge IP,
yeah.
but you're trying to garner, again, just a big worldwide audience that probably won't sit down and read the books or isn't familiar
Yeah.
with the lore. And while we're not saying that audiences are not very smart, audiences do like to be able to see the pieces fall together pretty simply. And
Yeah.
so to present it in this way, with that kind of motivation aspect makes
I think
sense when you're trying to write for a broader audience.
when we're writing scenes, when we're working with clients, what are we always doing? We're always trying to tighten, right? We're always trying to
Sure.
tighten the scene and tighten the structure, tighten the story. And so that's what this is.
Right.
Especially if you have probably like a billion producers breathing down your neck. You know
For
what I
sure.
mean? Like you're just trying to
Yeah.
make it perfect. So with this, I want to take us back to a little different show that we were covering. Do you remember what my biggest gripe with the Wheel of Time's main villain was?
Well, that we didn't know who the villain was.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
what do we have here? We have a relationship with Halbrand that we have developed with the character, with the audience, which brings the big reveal. As slightly expected as it was to some or shocking to others, there is an emotional impact there. I know who this guy is.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it works. I mean, it was building up the whole season. And clearly, obviously, we know even from Galadriel's perspective, like her motivation and her goal is
Yeah.
I'm stopping Sauron. Like
Yeah.
that's it. It's clear. It's set in stone from the very 30 seconds
Yeah.
of the show. And so that's when this moment culminates where we see the reveal of that it's him, and he's been right in front of her the whole time.
Right.
That's powerful. That's an impactful thing for, audiences who have been kind of following this journey this whole time. And I think with you're right, bringing up some other shows, particularly the Wheel of Time, it was a missed opportunity to really build in a good conflict story with a villain who was identifiable, and that there was clearly a protagonist and an antagonist, and they were at each other.
Exactly. But the other thing I think with this big moment structure wise is it's a moment that has a universal truth to it, which is so important when it comes to story building. Who here, raise your hands, like who hasn't been betrayed at one point by somebody, whether it's a friend, a lover, a relative. We've all had that happen. And so here she built this relationship with this guy, and he betrayed her, right? And so that's powerful. That hits with people. So when I saw that, and I saw that there was a connection there brewing, which in my opinion was authentic. Like I think he does care for her. I think he is interested in her in the way that he can be. So when he presents her with the option of being his queen, I think it's authentic.
Yeah, and again, extremely interesting. I think very probably jarring for some of those diehard Tolkien fans, who probably laughed at it. I mean, to be quite honest with you, but in my mind, I thought, wow, that's an interesting kind of perspective to take of him having this really, like, he has bonded with her, and there is something that he feels like they are the same, even though they're totally different, they're the same, and that they could be one and the same together kind of thing.
I think it's great. I mean, him saying you could ground me in the light, we both know he's lying on that one. He's just trying to sway her. I mean, everybody's been desperate at one point and was trying to spit mad game. So we didn't really think that was going to happen.
Right.
But yeah, he is trying to woo her in his way. But I like the fact that he is a character that is a little bit more developed. He has somewhat of an emotional capacity. He can connect with somebody, even though he's, I don't know, an eternal being. It sounds like Sauron's been around for quite a while.
quite a while and will be around for quite a while. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, eventually he's like 15 feet tall. So,
yeah, he's like,
so,
hi.
so there's that. So I did think that was great. I did like her subplot of tracking down the bloodlines and figuring out that, he's not who he says he is.
He's not used to it. Yeah.
Kind of wish you did that ahead of time, maybe do a little background check on the guy you think's hot, but I don't want to get into that. That is
Don't
what it
just
is.
jump to a
I
conclusion,
don't want to
baby.
just go like, hey, we met on a raft. It was meant to be. So, um, so there's that. I am looking forward to season 2 with Sauron versus Adar. I think that's going to be really cool.
That's cool too. I really want to see kind of how that plays out, because now there's questions in my mind, which is great. When you're leaving the audience with questions that they're kind of looking forward to following through into the next season.
Yeah.
Are they going to reunite? Does Adar think that he actually is dead and doesn't realize that he's still out there? Like those kinds of questions like run in your mind,
I hope they build it out, and I hope it isn't like an episode 1 season 2 thing where Sauron shows up and then just like guts Adar and takes over.
And then it's over.
I don't want to see that happen. I actually want to see like a decent drawn out battle there, not battle, but at least them, creating armies or going after each other's camps or whatever it is, or even a little bit of a political thing. Maybe he starts getting in there and starts swaying orcs away from Adar's camp. That could be really fascinating as well.
Yeah, it's conflict within. Yeah,
I love it. So I think that's interesting. And then just like the geek in me wants to know what the hell these rings do. Like I've only seen one ring that I know makes people invisible and like super agitated. Like when I'm hungry and I need a Snickers bar, like that's what the one ring does. So I want to know what these other rings do. I know that's so ridiculous. But like the show literally has the word rings in it twice. So I'm like, let's find out what
Lord
these
of the
things
Rings,
do.
the rings of power.
So I'm just putting it out there. Show me what these damn rings do. Other than looking fascinating. So that's all I have. Do you have anything else on this show?
I mean, we kind of didn't really touch on one last thing, which was obviously the Harfoots with Nori,
that's really good.
And the big still up in the air question, even though for me in my mind it's pretty set, is that, have we revealed that that's Gandalf? Have we met Gandalf?
Right. I would agree with you. I mean, he's Gandalf, or he is proto Gandalf. I mean, I don't know what you want to, maybe he's a different wizard. I really did like the idea of the fact that he has all this power, but once he has his staff, that's how they focus power. I thought that was super cool.
Right.
I love the visual of these 3 dark creatures devolving into like, I know, moths. I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah.
I want to know more about that.
And who were they and what were they and like where did they come from? And then now, I mean, like I'm
lore building.
To see that.
Yeah, exactly. Because the actors are fascinating. I mean, the look of them was really interesting. Because I thought they were quote Ishtar. See, I'm just throwing these terms out there. But obviously they were not. I mean, nobody was convinced that he was Sauron, even though all of the visual imagery around him was always Sauron-esque,
but then you put him in the context of the friendship and the relationship that he builds with the Harfoots and with Nori, and it's like, the intro to Fellowship of the Ring. Come on.
But I thought it was I love the characters. Think it's just great. I can't wait to see where they go. It sounds like they've put him on a path towards self-discovery. So I mean, I think eventually we're gonna learn what he is, but I definitely want to see more about this lore around the Ishtar, because it's so fascinating to me. I was reading up on it, and essentially they're like angels, from what I can understand. So I think it's so cool. So I'm really interested. I did enjoy it. The Harfoots, I thought was great. We had some sad moments there, which I mean, it hits you deep, but at the same time, we needed it.
It's that heart. I mean, there's a lot of heart elements in the show, but that's really, to me, that was like the heart plot.
I agree.
Kind of art, for sure.
No, I think you're absolutely right.